I've had it. I've had it up to here with my entitled son, so you know what? I called the cops. I'm 35 and female. I have a son that was born when I was married to my first husband. I was young when he was born, and his father was abusive to me. My ex-husband's mom was constantly in our lives, trying to take over and make my son hers. I left my ex when I was in my early 20s, and my ex-mother-in-law ended up taking my son to another state and filing for custody. She went to a state that has grandparents' rights, as ours did not. I fought her for years, ended up getting remarried to my current spouse, and we had a son together when I was in my mid-20s, a boy who's now 10. I see my oldest son only during the summer holidays. I finally got the court case moved to our local court, and the judge said that I was wrong and ordered shared custody and visitation. My ex-mother-in-law made a huge deal that the son needed to stay with her during the week because of school. And well, the judge went with it so he could finish high school in an environment he was familiar with. My ex-mother-in-law has ruined my son, just like she did her own. She's given him everything he's wanted and asked for. She's taught him no respect and kept him very sheltered. She literally jumps on people if they don't give him his way. So, in turn, my son's loud, violent, and all around sad to be around. So, he came to visit me during Halloween and showed his awfulness. My husband's mom lives with us and she isn't well. She's doing chemo. She's been a big help with my youngest son so that I could help with my husband with our business. My youngest is a delight to be around. He's polite, funny, respectful. We've taught him that you don't expect anything unless you work for it. I went and picked my oldest up and well, his attitude started right away. His phone died, and the charger I had in the truck simply didn't fit his phone. He wanted me to get off the interstate and buy him an overpriced one from a truck stop. I told him no. I'd get him one once we got in town, and that the next time he needs to remember to pack his, or bring one from the house in the car. I suggested making a packing list ahead of time. Now, my youngest was in the back with his tablet playing quietly, and my oldest realized the tablet was plugged into a car charger. He asked his younger brother for the charger, and I told him it's an Apple charger, it won't work with an Android. Well, my oldest said, "You don't know that, shut up." Next thing I know, he's forcibly taking the Apple charger and is trying to jam it into his phone, when it clearly didn't work. He threw it into the backseat of the truck. My youngest just plugged his tablet back up without a word, but I told my older son his behavior's unacceptable. Well, fast forward to the next day. Older son is still fuming at me because I made him wait, badmouthed me to his grandma, etc. I left to go for the office, as did my husband, and my mother-in-law was going to take my youngest son to the treat trail for Halloween. She asked older son if he wanted to go, and he told her to kick rocks. My husband told older son not to speak to her like that. Well, I knew trouble was brewing, I just didn't know how bad. Apparently, mother-in-law and younger son went to the treat trail, and older son called mother-in-law to tell her he wanted Hardee's, also known as Carl Jr.'s. My mother-in-law told him there was food at home, and that it would be a while before she could get it. Older son told her she needs to bring it now. Well, my mother-in-law told him to either eat what's at the house or simply wait. So what does older son do? He cusses her out and hangs up the phone. Mother-in-law called me and I told her not to reward bad behavior. I told her we had plans to go out anyways later to eat. He could wait. So when mother-in-law gets home, she tries to open the door and her keys don't work. Older son comes to the door and tells her that he's angry, doesn't want her in the house, so he locked her out. He told her to wait outside until he either felt like opening the door or until I came home. My mother-in-law told him to open the dang door ASAP. Well, she called me crying and I went the hell off. I called only son and told him he didn't make the rules around here. He went by them and that he would be punished if he did not open the door. Well, he really thought I was playing. I left the office and went straight home. Oh boy, cue the disaster. I opened the door and older son was there on the other side. Mother-in-law and younger son had been waiting in her car. And older son was blocking threshold, saying he'd only tell mother-in-law to keep outside. It's her punishment for telling him no. I told him to move. Now. I tried to push past him and he pushed me back outside, threatening to lock us all out. I went to go inside again and he put his hands on my face and I pushed him to heck off. I told him that's it. I'm calling the cops. He didn't think I was serious, but I did it. Oh boy, did I do it. I told the dispatcher that my oldest son was refusing to let me into my own home and had put his hands on me. Older son goes into a rage, and I mean a pure rage. He comes out of the door screaming profanity and threats, tries to take my phone, and the lady tells me she'll send some help ASAP. I mean, I had to literally fight him to keep him from breaking my phone. Then he goes after my youngest son. He tells younger son that he hates him and is going to kill him because younger son caused his life to be awful since he was born, and that older son should be the only one getting anything from me. Older son said this. He was my, quote, one and only true son since he was born first and from my first marriage. I don't know, ex-mother-in-law bullcrap. Well, my mother-in-law locks younger son in her car, and older son proceeds to kick, punch, crack the windows of the windshield in her car. Older son goes after mother-in-law just as my husband pulls up. He's telling mother-in-law that this is her fault, that she just needed to do what he said. My husband tries to restrain older son, but he's screaming he'll have my husband arrested. The police come and they immediately take over restraint on only son and put him into the back of the van. My husband and I explained the situation. I told the officer my ex-mother-in-law had shared custody. So the officer calls ex-mother-in-law and tells her exactly what's happening. He puts her on speaker and she immediately puts the blame on us, saying we provoked him and are abusive to him. The officer told her that didn't seem to be the case, as a neighbor had come forward and said she called 911. Also had the security camera that showed the entire thing. Ex-mother-in-law jumps to saying the police are here and can't do anything with older son, as he's a resident of another state, blondie blondie blah. The cop tells ex-mother-in-law that's not the case, and it seems like older son needs to learn he's not in control. The officer hangs up, and ex-mother-in-law immediately calls me. I put her on speakerphone. She's not the smartest, yet thinks she is. Ex-mother-in-law said if I had older son arrested that I would be a bad mom, and that he was justified in what he'd asked and done. I'd asked her about the, quote, true son thing, and she said that he was my only heir, as he was my first son and from my first marriage, and divorce is a sin? I told her that's not how it works. I told her I'm tired of him taking my home over and trying to hurt people. Long story short, he spent 3 days in juvie, locked up before a hearing, and the judge asked me what I wanted to do. So older son's being sent to a group home. My ex-mother-in-law fought the entire way, but had no hold because both officers and my neighbors gave statements. Now, ex-mother-in-law saying I'm ruining his life, and I'm a crap parent. She's also accusing my husband of abuse towards older son. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. I do have 2 updates for this story, and it seems this entitled son is not quite done yet. Go ahead and click that subscribe button if you want to support the channel, and if you're feeling froggy, smash that like button. Let's see what's going on with this update. I spoke again and suggested my willingness to terminate my parental rights like my ex-husband did. The caseworker said she thought it was best because they got to get older son help without ex-mother-in-law interfering. The caseworker also told me that they'll have to investigate the allegations against my spouse, even though she knows they aren't true. I recorded the call. She said only son's the worst they've seen and needs intensive help. So I've signed papers for him to get treatment, but my ex-mother-in-law also has a say and is refusing. They want her out of the picture. I'm not sure what to do. I know this could affect my youngest son. The caseworker said if this goes to court, that my ex-mother-in-law is planning on using my younger son as her defense, saying I play favorites and provide more for younger son. The caseworker says she understands the situation, but the judge probably won't. Ex-mother-in-law is also playing the card that my husband won't provide for only son. Well, this is not correct, but my husband has never had any legal obligations to do so. My husband's livid. He said he's tired of older son disrupting our home. He says that older son's not welcome here and that I need to sign the papers. Okay, so here's the most recent update. I had a meeting with his house therapist this morning, and the therapist and group admin suggested sending him to do therapeutic foster home, or one of the psychs, until, well, he's just too much for them to try to rein in. He's made sexual and physical threats to female staff, and just been defying everyone. Even though my ex-husband signed his rights over to his mom, ex-mother-in-law, the GH staff tried contacting him, and my ex and his wife told him to never call again. That they didn't want older son around their girls because he's been violent towards them in the past. The in-house said older son needs more help than she can give him, and he seems to undermine her because, well, she is a she. He has a true disrespect for women, and he makes it clear. I tried talking to him before I left, and he said again, if I didn't tell them I'd lie, then he'd not speak to me. I told him if that's what you want, but you aren't coming home. He said to me, in front of everyone, that he was coming home, and we'd all be punished for this when he did. I told him, dude, that's simply never happening. Older son said if I took him home today, then my punishment might not be as severe. Well, I told him he's not doing anything to me. He literally said this, "We'll see which," with different letters at the start. And I walked away. The problem with a therapeutic home is nobody in our area is willing to take him in due to how violent he is. And well, it goes to psych ward. He'll be locked down for 23 hours a day. Older son's also trying to put this on spouse, saying his stepfather is to blame, and if the courts would make my husband leave, older son's behavior would just change. Well, this is simply not true. He's just trying to cause more problems. I told them my spouse has had very limited interaction with older son, and has had no disciplinary action towards so. The GH gave me older son's phone, shoes, and other personal belongings. I went through the text on it to ex-mother-in-law after my husband did some sort of magic to unlock the phone. Older son jokes with ex-mother-in-law about literally killing me. How he deserves to have my home to himself, and how his little brother is an abomination because younger son's father's my second husband. Ex-mother-in-law is religious and doesn't believe in divorce. The phone is a prepaid phone, so I'm going to deactivate it and put it away in case I need some evidence. So, I've texted ex-mother-in-law and told her I had his phone and would be keeping it, and the next message is, she went nuclear-powered because she knows she's busted. She starts saying things about my deceased father, and trying to like older son's deflecting the blame. Well, I can't wait to see what lies she comes up with next. I'll know in a few days what the plan is, whether they can find someone to take him or if he's going to lockdown until the judge said he can't come back home because the court fears for the safety of my younger child. Well, CPS is also involved now, and the CPS worker asked if I'd be willing to sign older son over to state, and I said absolutely not. I just need to know from you guys. Am I an a-hole for the way that I've treated my son, knowing he's a menace to society, and I'm deeply scared of what he's capable of? And I think what I've done is the only option viable. This was actually a really scary situation, with the threats that the older son was making about killing his mother to the mother-in-law just blows my mind. I didn't even know what I was reading because it was so crazy. Let's take a second right now and go ahead and look at some of the comments. Holy crap. You did the right thing. Your son's a threat to everyone in your household, and his grandmother's doing him no favors. Get him the help he needs, don't abandon him, but don't risk your family's safety. Comment number 2 replies to that, says, the air phrase is making me worry. Sounds like ex-mother-in-law was hyping up OP's death/inheritance that would go to older son. The mother-in-law will likely be dead by that time, but OP would be smart not to give anything to the first son until he cleans his act up. So guys, let me know your thoughts. Do you actually think this older son deserves any inheritance the way he's acting? I mean, he locked an elderly lady outside in cold weather and was forced for her to go back to her car and wait just to get back into her house. It was absolutely ridiculous. Let me know though, drop your comments down below guys. There's still one more story. The title for story number 2, and let me tell you right now, it's a crazy one. OP asked if she's the a-hole for introducing her boyfriend's parents as grandma and grandpa to her son. But let me tell you this, the son and the boyfriend are not biologically related. This story gets crazy. Let's jump into that now, smash that subscribe button, and here is your final story. This last Thursday, I, 29 female, went over to my boyfriend Jay's, 25 male house for Thanksgiving, and I brought my son with me who's 4. I and Jay have been together for a year and a half now, and he's the most amazing man in the world. He's been amazing with my son. His bio father is not in his life, and I can genuinely see him as, quote, the one. Jay's parents came over as well. It's not that I don't get along with them, it's just I've only ever seen them 3 times before Thanksgiving. I've not had any time to really bond with them, I guess. They've not met my son in person either, but they both know about him. By the time I arrived, Jay's parents were already there and helping him finish up dinner. We greeted each other and Jay's dad asked this, "And who's this little guy?" I introduced them to my son and then introduced Jay's parents as Grandma and Grandpa to my precious boy. Well, I didn't know at the time, but all 3 of them became really quiet almost immediately. I ended up waiting in the living room alone for almost half an hour before the dinner. Things were just incredibly awkward for the rest of the night. My son did end up calling his parents by Grandpa and Grandma, and I quickly noticed both of them would be very disingenuous and awkward about it over dinner. But they didn't say anything to me about it, not even a word. They didn't stick around for long enough after either, but when they left, both were very cold to me. I asked Jay, "Hey dude, what's their deal?" And well, he lost it at me. He claims I put him in an incredibly awkward position. His parents apparently didn't think we were that serious, and began to question him if I was only using him as a replacement daddy. Yeah, seriously. He said that it was way out of line to introduce them the way I did without even talking to him beforehand. Well, I think it's ridiculous. If one day he's going to be my son's stepdad, then why go through this formal nonsense? He claims that, quote, "It's not the point," and we ended up fighting, so I stormed out. We've not talked since, and I've simply been waiting for an apology. I talked with my sister about it last night, and she said she was mortified to hear this, saying she also didn't get the read that we were all that serious, and she never really felt Jay intended to take on the dad role. This has me questioning if I was wrong. Hey guys, Mr. Reddito here, so let me know your thoughts on it, but I'll tell you right now. The verdict on it, and what all the comments are saying basically, is in fact OP is an a-hole. So I do have an update, it might clear a few things up, but let me know in the comment section. Before you heard the update, do you think OP is in fact the verdict of an a-hole? Drop your thoughts down below. Thank you for joining once again, and let's see what's happening with update number 1. Well, people still seem interested in my post about introducing my boyfriend Jay's parents to my son and, quote, Grandma, Grandpa. I thought I would update everyone on what's transpired since. Immediately, when I realized I was in the wrong, I called Jay and apologized for what happened. He told me he needed some space and wanted to just take a break. I ended up calling his mother as well and apologized profusely. His mother forgave me, and after I explained my reasoning, said she didn't hold it against me. However, in retrospect, I think she was only being nice to me, knowing her son was going to end the relationship. Speaking of Jay, well, Jay ended the relationship. I decided to take the advice given here about sitting down with Jay and getting on the same page about it. I also saw some of the comments here about taking a break equals relationship ended. So I called up Jay and told him that I wanted to talk sooner rather than later about this. We met yesterday, and while I feel our talk went well, it was really obvious to me that Jay was done with the relationship. He said that while he always knew that me and my son were a package deal, he not decided at that point if he was truly going to take on the quote dad role for my son. He said he felt like by interpreting his niceness and acceptance of my son as a fatherly role was a gigantic red flag. Especially because, well, we've never talked about it at all. He said that the real problem he had was me deciding that his parents were grandma and grandpa, without even discussing it first. My original refusal to apologize and expecting him to just say it's all good, or part of it as well, I guess. There's other things he brought up that I feel are beyond the issue, anyways, so I'm going to leave them out. Many of the criticisms left on my original post lined up with what he said, so I can really say for certain I messed up big time. I apologized, but I knew there was really no hope of saving this, so I didn't push when he said he felt like we should end the relationship. Overall, my last post made me realize that I really needed to work on my own expectations from my partner and how he'll fit into my son's life. I'll also really need to work on my communication skills. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. I hope you enjoyed my chaotic life. Okay, so there was a comment I want to run by you guys. It happened some time ago. It was like a related experience to this story, but it was when the person who wrote the comment was growing up. It says this: well, where I grew up, all my friends would call everyone else's parents and grandparents by whatever they called them. So my friend's mom, I would call mom, etc. I guess I get now that that's not normal, but I still think it was a bit of an excuse to end a relationship that Jay wanted out of anyways. I was on a hike a few weeks ago with my cousins and the littlest one, not quite 3, says comment 2, and taking forever and stopping to look at every blade of glass. I told her we had to hurry up. Come on, Daddy's calling you. She looks me straight in the face and says, Daddy? His name's Mike. So that's a little funny comment to add on top of the stories, guys. I hope you enjoyed these 2 stories that I read to you today. If you did, show some support to the channel, smash that like button, go subscribe to my other channels down below in the description because I have daily stories on all my channels. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be here tomorrow and I hope to see you there. Peace.